Kelsey Spille. On behalf of all of us in CGT, a warm welcome to all of you. And to the graduating high school seniors who have been admitted to Purdue, congratulations. You can submit questions via the YouTube chat window by signing into your Google account and typing them in. Our academic advisor, Aimee Griggs, along with our technical director, John O'Malley, will be monitoring the chat, and we will do our best to answer your questions. If we don't get to your question tonight, please feel free to send a follow-up email to techrecruit@purdue.edu, and we will respond later on. Before we start tonight's discussion, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with the professors who are here tonight. Would you please tell us your name and a little bit about the courses you teach? Hello, Angus. Let's start with you.
Hello, I'm Professor Angus Forbes. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Computer Graphics Technology, and I teach courses on data visualization, on computer graphics programming, and on generative AI.
Good evening, David.
My name is David Whittinghill. I am the head of the games program and associate professor. And yeah, that's it.
And hello to you tonight, Dan.
Hi, my name is Daniel Triplett. I am a professor in, I teach kind of across games, animation, and VFX. I'm the area lead for the animation and VFX at the moment. And I would say I'm kind of a artist slash technical artist. So that's my role.
Awesome. And one of our academic advisors has joined us tonight. Aimee is doing double duty, answering your questions in the chat room and also potentially answering questions on camera. Good evening, Aimee.
Good evening. I'm Aimee Griggs. I'm the senior academic advisor here in computer graphics. So there's 3 of advisors. So I could be your advisor moving forward. Looking forward to working with all you.
Awesome. We also have current students with us tonight. Aashika, would you please tell us where you're from, why you choose your major, and why you picked Purdue for that major?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Aashika Parekh. I'm I'm majoring in UX design with a double minor in communication and psychology, as well as a certification in Python. I chose Polytech because my major has no midterms and no final exams, so I can't have, nothing can top that. And I'm from Princeton, New Jersey.
Fantastic. Hello, and Nadia, can you share? I think she had to pop off real fast. Good evening, Emma. Same question for you.
Hi, my name's Emma. I am a junior in web programming and design, and I have a minor in psychology. And I chose Purdue, and specifically my major, because I like being able to use both the kind of technical and creative sides of my brain. I lost audio. I like to be able to use both the technical and creative sides of my brain, and I like that both of those things kind of play into this major.
And Ishani.
Hi, I'm Ishani. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm majoring in UX design. I'm a freshman. I'm also trying to pursue a minor in computer science and a certificate in entrepreneurship. And I just really liked how hands-on the program seemed and the fact that it's very faculty involved, it's very team involved. And I really felt like this was just like a really nice place to learn.
Wonderful. And when Nadia comes back, we will make sure that we have her share her background, okay? Just before we begin, I want to tell our viewers about the lingo that we will be using during our conversation tonight. There's a list of our lingo on the screen right now. We often refer to our majors using short informal names. As one example, animation is a short name for our animation and visual effects major. Our most common shorthand is CGT, which stands for the Department of Computer Graphics Technology here in the Polytechnic Institute or the college at Purdue University. Okay, so the first question, it's going to be for you, Dan. Let's talk in general about the plans of study for students in CGT majors. What are some of the courses students take during their first year? And then how soon does their coursework become more specific to their majors?
Well, I'm mostly familiar with the games, VFX, and animation coursework, and I actually know that they do start taking courses that are major specific within the first year. In fact, they might have a number of them. I would say at the minimum, at least 2. And there's also a bunch of university requirements. I'm sure Aimee could probably give a little bit more on that. Aimee.
Sorry, I had to unmute. In your first year here in computer graphics, we do have right now we have 4 common courses that all of you will take, and then going into your second semester and also into your third, you are more major specific. Everyone is required to take at least up to calculus, which you'll hear your advisor say math 160-10. Everyone but UX is required to take physics, and then a humanities. We all have what you'll also hear references UCC, the University Common Core, that everyone is required to meet those requirements.
Yeah, and if I can add, like, I know that so I teach a sketching class. It's a 100 level class that usually has first year students. I teach the intro to modeling class, 3D modeling class, and that usually has first year students. So I know there are a number of classes that you're getting right into major specific stuff. I'm not as familiar with, we have a number of different majors, so I'm intimately familiar with the ones that I teach in. So the other ones, like Angus, might be able to say what happens in data viz a little bit better than I do.
I believe everyone takes a course called CGT 118, so you get a chance to know all the other incoming freshmen and what, regardless of whether you're in UX design or interested in animation or interested in computer games. So it's a chance for everyone to find friends and find commonality across all the new incoming students. For data visualization, the first required course is a 270 course. Freshmen can take it, but oftentimes people take it as a sophomore, and sometimes even later. But yeah, you'll find across all the different tracks within CGT, there's a few common courses that everyone. Is my audio back? That everyone in CGT takes, and of course, depending on your track, you'll take custom courses that are more advanced related to your specific major, whether it's UX design or animation or computer graphics, etc. Of course, you can take courses, if you're an animator and you're interested in VR, you're totally welcome to take a course in VR. If you're a UX designer interested in programming, that's totally fine as well.
Fantastic. And it looks like Webex is having some audio difficulties tonight, so we do apologize if the sound cuts out briefly. John, our technical director, is monitoring that problem for us. Angus, I do want you to talk a little bit about how your courses are set up for DataViz. Can you explain how we have our lab lecture set up for all of our courses?
Sure. Yeah, the right now, I believe there's 3 or 4 courses in data visualization, and 3 of them have this lab lecture set up. So what normally happens is the beginning of the week, there's a lecture. For example, this semester, I'm teaching Introduction to Data Visualization. So the Monday lecture, I'll go over various topics in data visualization and data science. And also, in some cases, programming for data visualization. Data visualization is a very interesting interdisciplinary field that mixes the computational and sometimes the expressive. And of course, there's a practical component to it as well, where students need to actually be able to do some programming so they can make those data visualizations live on the web, for example. So the Monday course, I introduce content, and then there's labs throughout the week. So the lecture is larger. This is an introductory course with about 100 students, and the labs are usually 25 or 30 students. And in those labs, the students get a chance to sit in front of a computer and work on a specific task, usually related to something more technical. And ideally, they finish the lab within 45 minutes or an hour, but if not, they can come back and use the lab throughout the week to finish an assignment. In addition to having a chance to meet with faculty or TAs in the lab, there's also office hours and additional lab hours, so that students have plenty of time to get familiar with the course content. And then the next week, a new topic is introduced that builds off of the previous topic, and the cycle happens again. Towards the end of the semester, I'm sure I don't know if this is true, but I assume it's true for computer games and for the other tracks, there's often a project component to our courses, even at the introductory level, where students are asked to work together and to collaborate on building a data visualization, in my case, and create something working together with their classmates. So sometimes the labs are steer away from kind of individual work, and they're a chance for students to work together to collaborate on hopefully a meaningful final project.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. David, in our game development major, is it a similar progression? Can you tell us about how students progress year to year from general courses to more specific games?
I think you're muted, David.
Oopsie. Yeah, so in year one, you get a more broad exposure to the different roles of game development, because you can be an artist, you could be a programmer, you could be a designer, you could be a manager, which we call producers. And through that first year, you get to kind of sample all of them and try them on for size a little bit, and to just get a sense of what game development can. Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the sound got weird. And so once you've had that exposure, then you can start specializing in year two. And we have a big assortment of different classes in art and programming, in design, like level design and in game audio, and scalable modeling and cool stuff. So then you start building out your specialization in year two. So by the time you get to year three, you've started to get good at something in particular. So then in year three, you will spend the next 2 years, years 3 and 4, working on a magnificent final project that it'll be a team-based project where you will get with some other specialists, some other artists or audio people or whatever, and you're going to come together and work on a game of your own design in this collaborative team. So you have 2 full years to make this, and hopefully it used to be 1 year, and we decided a couple years ago that we wanted to give you a full 2 years to really shine. So yeah, the focus starts going completely on team-based learning and project-based learning in year 3. And we try as much as possible to use the tools that are used in the games industry. So the project management tools, the game development tools, the modeling tools, all of that. And you get graded on not just what you make, but did you make it according to industry best practices? So how did you make it is just as important as what you made. With the goal is that all y'all, when you're done, you can go into the games industry and be prepared.
Fantastic. Nadia, the next question is for you, but before we ask that, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, your major, and why you picked Purdue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. So I'm Nadia. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a junior here, and I'm in game development and design.
Why did you choose to come to Purdue?
So the reason I chose to come to Purdue was mainly like their strong major in like game development. I actually came here with Wowit, so I got to experience a little bit of Purdue and the technology that they have here. And I was actually able to make a small animation just like in a few hours. So that was really fun. So that kind of intrigued me to come here.
Awesome. And so remind me again, what you're a junior, is that correct?
Yes.
Great. And so you've had some opportunities to be able to develop multiple projects during your time here. What has been your favorite class project so far? And what aspect about it was the most challenging? for you?
I think I have a current class project in CGT 365, which is basically we are all like in a team. We are all in our specialized like areas. So I'm the level designer, and we all come together to create a game. And at the end, we should have a full demo, which is what we're working towards right now. It's been a there's definitely also been some challenges, like just having experience that I've never had before, working in a team for 2 semesters. So it's a long-term project. So that's probably been the most challenging part, just trying to work together with everyone and understand everyone's like strong points and weak points and trying to adapt just in an instant and keep going. But it's definitely been very helpful.
Wonderful. And you said that was in 365. Do you know what the title of that is called?
Yes, it's a game development practicum 1.
Awesome. Thank you. And Emma, similar question for you as a junior in web programming. What has been a favorite aspect of your major so far?
Yeah, so aside from what I kind of said earlier about how it's both creative and technical, one of the things that really drew me both to the major, is that you aren't very restricted once you graduate. You aren't really confined to any sort of field or industry because you can kind of go anywhere. Every company, every field, every industry needs a website, and you always need someone to run it. So I kind of liked having that freedom once I graduate, based on my major.
Fantastic. And do you think that you have seen more technical challenges along the way from your freshman year to now?
Yeah, definitely. Especially as so much of our classes and our core curriculum is different programming languages, and kind of seeing, which ones come easily to you and which ones don't, and which ones are a little bit harder to get at first, has definitely been a learning curve and definitely something that you have to work towards sometimes, but it is definitely very rewarding once you do get it figured out.
Absolutely. And I've heard many of our faculty talk about the fact that you are learning these skills to be able to walk up to a brand new language that you've never interacted with before in industry and ready to be able to figure it out there on the job. And the fact that you walk away with those skills is amazing. And just as a technical note to our viewers, our panelists are connected via Webex, and then our meeting gets uploaded to YouTube. Webex is having some audio connection issues tonight. We apologize for audio cutouts, and we're doing our best to keep the problems brief. Now, my next question is for our UX design major, Aashika. Is it structured around 2 types of studios? Is it learning studios and experience studios?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you talk about how those are set up and the difference between those two?
Yeah. So just like our professors mentioned, everybody in CGT has those really introductory major courses in the first semester, which is in the fall. And then in spring semester, UX students jump right into learning all about UX. So we have 2 studios to do that. The first one is Fundamentals or Learning Studio, where it's kind of like your own workshop where it's a 3-hour class period or studio where you first do a bit of lecture, but more it's kind of hands-on lecture. They go through different activities, different procedures, different processes that really help you understand the entire UX design flow of starting with research, then going into testing, then going into designing, testing, developing, and then finally iterating all of that again. So you learn all of the concepts and all the fundamentals in these learning studios. And then in Experience Studio, which happens in the same semester, you kind of partner up with real companies and work on their projects. So a couple of companies, just for an example, for this semester, Microsoft, Expedia, Kayak, these are some of the companies that have joined with the life experience, as well as, use those skills that we've learned for a couple studios now in Learning Studio and push them into Experience Studio. And what's great about Experience Studio is that it's a vertical class. So in your teams, you have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, all the way up to grad students. So you can, as a freshman, learn from those senior members or those grad students that have spent a long time in UX learning about all of these things. And then as you go through the years, you can start mentoring your own freshmen and sophomores that come into the program.
Awesome. Now, Ishani, as a first year UX design student, are you directly involved in the learning studios and experience studios yet?
So in my second semester, which is currently, I got to join my first studios and I'm really loving it so far. I know our first semester was really just a base for CGT and it was good to get that base knowledge, but I love being able to actually interact with my major and especially the experience studio. It's really valuable to be able to learn from people who already kind of know more about what they're doing and can guide you, but at the same time, they give you work. So it's not like you're just shadowing them, you're actively involved. And I also love the learning studios because I feel like I'm getting to know a lot more about my major, which even though I think I had a background, there's so much that is just left to learn and know. And especially because we read a lot of literature in our learning studio and then we apply it during class. So I think that's just a really fun way to get to know it. And I'm just loving it so far.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite project you've started so far this semester?
So in my experience studio, we work on one project throughout the entire semester. And what my team is doing right now is we're working on a sports fantasy app with a startup. And I just think it's really unique because you hear a lot about like note-taking apps or websites. So to think that there's still like niches and industries where we can still apply our skills is really fascinating to me.
Now, Dan, one of the hallmarks at Purdue Polytechnic is hands-on learning or experiential learning. In general, what does it mean to learn by doing in the majors here in CGT?
So that's probably a very appropriate question for me. I have a very part of my teaching philosophy is actually doing stuff project based and basically almost like constructive play. And I find that when students actually get involved and start like building things, they come to life about within their schooling and their learning. So I try to a lot of my classes, not every one of them, but a lot of my classes, I try to make them very involved in where we actually will have projects that you get hands-on with equipment. You get hands-on. Sometimes it is just using like software programs, but a lot of times they'll be like hands-on with equipment, or it'll be like life drawing type of things that we do in class. I'll bring in things that we actually draw. That's for like a sketching class would be an example of something like that. But like we'll build models through photogrammetry in some of our classes. So what that is we take out very high-end cameras and we take a bunch of photographs and actually feed those into a program that uses trigonometry to actually make point cloud information, then pump out a actual model, a 3D model of objects. And this is how, if you guys are seeing like some of the video games that have come out now, that have really, really high-end, like amazingly realistic graphics. That's actually how they're doing a lot of stuff. They're actually scanning objects and bringing them into the 3D. Great, because it's hands-on. It's not like you're just sitting in front of a computer all the time.
Now, Angus, you touched on this a little bit earlier. Would you share any examples of a project in DataViz that counts as learning by doing?
Sure. Yeah, there's different labs and different assignments that invite students, force students to go out and collect data that's meaningful to them. And for a lot of students, they're interested in game data. So they want to see a heat map of activity within a particular game, or they're interested in the sales of particular genres of games. Some students are interested in things like climate change or the demographics of the country and how they've changed. And so I give students the tools to figure out how to find that data and how to clean the data up so that they can import it into, let's say, a programming language and use various tools to render it or display it or interact with it. So the students are given details about where they can find the data that they care about. Some students are taking courses outside of CGT where they might be interested in some scientific domain, such as neuro. This is usually more for the more advanced students in their junior or senior year or graduate level. Might be interested in neuroscience data or ocean science data. And so I work with a lot of students who are trying to figure out how to work with contemporary data that's describing some real world scientific problem as well. So there's a wide range of things that are relatively accessible. You can find on a website, you can download as a spreadsheet and then incorporate it into some visualization tool or some programming language that lets you visualize it. And of course, my goal is to make it so that that process of finding the data and working with the data is challenging, but not difficult or confusing. Of course, it might be at first, but the faculty and the teaching assistants are there and the lab sessions are there to help it make it easier for students to gather that data on their own and work with it. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much. David, do students need to have experience with anything in particular, like maybe a specific programming language, or maybe even Unreal Engine before they start in game development here at Purdue? Or can they start from scratch and learn everything they will need to know once they get here?
Pretty much from scratch. We try to assume in year one that you have a pretty standard high school preparation. So we don't assume you've even programmed before. We've got an intro programming class. And in terms of game engines, you will be at an advantage if you spend some time with Unreal Engine before you get here. But you will not be at a disadvantage if you do not. So really what you need to do is right away start developing a habit of self-study, because games, the technology changes so fast and the approaches to make games changes so fast. Angus was talking about generative AI. That's really changing a lot of things in games, especially. And if you don't have this habit of constantly being self-motivated, as much as you can, as almost like brushing your teeth in the morning, right? You just got a habit of taking care of yourself, and that's something we encourage, is to come with an open mind and a willingness to always be learning.
Wonderful. Now, Emma, how much programming experience did you have before coming to Purdue as a web programmer?
Yeah, I was one of those people that was starting from scratch. So I actually came in through exploratory, and it was my first year at Purdue that the web major kind of hit my radar, and I had shown interest in it. So I was put into the class CGT 141, which I think is like Internet Foundations and something, I forget, it's a long name. But it was a programming class, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna go horribly. Like, I don't know anything about this. And I actually ended up really liking it. And that's kind of what gave me that first inspiration of like, okay, like I think that this could really be for me.
Now, would you say that that's typical for all of your peers who started out in that major?
I definitely think that there is some variety. There are definitely plenty of people that did take at least some sort of like computer science class in high school, or something similar, or just kind of have had their own interest, like even if it's just kind of as a hobby. But yeah, I think that everyone kind of comes in, you know, from wherever they're at and from whatever their interest level is. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't consider myself to ever be at a disadvantage by not knowing beforehand.
Wonderful. And Nadia, similar question for you. How much programming experience did you have before coming to Purdue? Did you ever use Unreal Engine? And do you think that that's typical for your peers in this major? Oh, did I lose Nadia? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I hadn't worked in Unreal Engine before I came here. I had a little bit of knowledge in like HTML and like building websites, which was like a mandatory course I had to take. But when I first got to class, there were a few people who knew, and like it was very obvious that they had worked in Unreal Engine. But on the same hand, there were also a lot of people who hadn't worked in Unreal Engine, and a lot of people just come together and ask each other questions, which is probably the best part about it. Of, you know, at least somebody, there's like another peer that I can go to at least that has some experience ahead of me that's also in the class.
Now, Ishani, I think you had mentioned earlier that you had come to campus with a little bit of UX design experience before. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Could you talk a little bit about that experience before you came to Purdue?
of course. So I took product design in high school, which is how I think I knew a little bit more about the design cycle than a lot of my peers. But even then, coming here, I realized that what I knew was a very linear way of looking at it, when design is actually circular. You keep falling back, you keep researching, you keep testing, and you just keep iterating your current design. And what we did in high school were very linear projects because we just had it as part of the curriculum. So I actually think I've gained a much better understanding here. And there's also a lot more I'm learning in terms of terminology. Again, high school was very surface level for me. So I feel like I'm learning a lot more, I'm doing a lot more, and I'm very involved. And I think there's also more of an emphasis on empathy and on critical and creative thinking. And something I've have a design background, but all of them have very strong analytical skills. And you don't necessarily need a design background for that, because those skills can come from even English class or math class. And it's just really more about how you think and how you use that thought process to create better products that really matters, I think.
Now, Aashika, has that been your experience as well as a UX design student?
Yeah, so in high school, I had a stronger computer science background. I did a lot in Java and Python, which was not anything kind of like UX design. But in my senior year of high school, I did an independent study because my amazing computer science teacher told me about all the different fields that I don't have to just do backend or machine learning or AI. No hate to those topics. I'm just not that type of person. So I really enjoyed it. I did it through CalArts, and I honestly loved every second of it, and it was much better than back-end coding for me. So I did have a very basic surface level knowledge on UX, but just like Ishani mentioned, that it was completely different to what I've learned and started learning in the studio's inexperience and fundamentals. So I definitely will say you don't need background in CS or in UX design coming into this major, but having that passion to learn new languages and learn new processes is something that you need to do, because you'll have a lot of late nights where you're trying to figure out if your code's working or trying to develop something where you don't have as many resources late at night. So I would say the best thing to have is not real technical background, but just the passion to actually do well in this major.
Wonderful. Dan, let's talk a little bit about technology in general as it relates to the majors in CGT. Would you please tell us a little bit about some of our labs and equipment that we have here that CGT students get to use?
Sure. Well, we have all kinds of stuff. Obviously, computers. We have some very high-end computers. I'm usually the person that picks them out, so I know the specs intimately. And we have Cintiqs for drawing and digital sculpting. We have camera gear, camera and lenses for video work, or for, like I mentioned earlier, photogrammetry work. VR type of, we have a certain amount of VR equipment, 3D printers. I don't think we don't have like a 3D printer lab, but I know we like a number of professors have access to 3D printers. I have a 3D printer. Trying to think of what else would be. Well, we have a motion capture suit that is actually like a portable one. You don't have to have it within a certain room. You could actually take it out with you. So it takes it's a little finicky sometimes to get it to work right, but it does work. I don't know. Does anybody else have any equipment they would want to add in?
I mean, there's VR equipment, Oculus VR headsets, high-end workstations with contemporary GPUs like the RTX 4090s. We have that in our lab. There's motion capture. I'm thinking of the green screen room.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's
Yep.
tons of stuff. Yeah, it's a playground for technology for sure.
I forgot about the green screen room. Yep, we have that.
I have a full surround Dolby Atmos sound system in my lab, which is pretty awesome.
Where students are usually
You can definitely
What's that? Where students are what?
CDT.
I said where students are usually working most times or hardly working sometimes. It's okay.
It's a games lab,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
I have a retro game station in my office. So if anybody wants to come and play the old Street Fighter, I have an old like 25-year-old Sony Trinitron in my office with a Sega Saturn hooked to it, and I challenge students and I usually wipe the floor with them. So I haven't been beaten yet, actually. Now that you mention it, so yeah, that's part of the equipment.
Okay. Speaking of equipment, a question that we usually get is always about what type of computers should students be bringing to campus with us. And so I know that I want to touch with both Dave and Aimee. Dave, specifically with games, what type of computer recommendations do you have for students?
So whatever you do, make sure it's all about the video card. Do not skimp on your video card. You want to make sure you have RTX graphics capability, and it could be through NVIDIA or it could be through AMD, but not Intel. If you have Intel only graphics, it does not support it. As for Apple, there's only one model of Apple that has this capability. It's called hardware accelerated ray tracing, and they call it RTX. And the only Apple model that has hardware accelerated ray tracing is the M3, and it costs an arm and a leg. So if you can afford it, it's wonderful. Okay, it's a really great machine, but it's probably $1,000 more than an equivalent Windows machine. So just make sure your graphics card is RTX capable. So that means it's if it's NVIDIA, it's a 3000 series or higher. And I apologize, I forget what the AMD is, what they name it, but just make sure it has hardware accelerated ray tracing.
Can I try?
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Angus.
There was a comment. I don't think the MacBook Air M3 supports RTX. It has to be a MacBook Pro M3. But I would suggest, I'm sure David would as well, if you're going to games, you should get a Windows machine
Yes.
with an NVIDIA or AMD
Yes.
GPU
Yes.
or graphics card or video card. Same thing. They just have different names.
Yep.
But
That's
for other
actually-
disciplines, for other tracks, I think Mac's fine. I think it's just the games track that really needs a Windows machine with this very strong GPU.
Would the same apply to animation students?
Yeah. So I was gonna that's what I actually was gonna say pretty much what Angus just said. Like, but I would include for an animation. I mean, technically the MacBook is just fine for animation as well because I mean the M3s are really fast. I have an M1 MacBook for like my mini laptop, and it does render well. It does just fine, but I wouldn't use it for game development. But in hindsight, I would probably just get a Windows machine that has an NVIDIA graphics card that's an RTX, like a modern RTX graphics card. Why do I say this? Because there's a certain kind of technology that's built into the NVIDIA cards that no other card has. Like it's called CUDA cores, and a lot of the programs that we use, the actual writers, the people that write the programs, use those CUDA cores to using the hardware. And so I'm not trying to sell Windows machines, but I'm just saying that I have 2 laptops. One of them's a Windows for my heavy lifting, and then I have a small laptop that I use for the rest, like if I want to just bring it around with me or go on vacation. So for heavy lifting stuff, I would say you go with the Windows machine. You know, but
Yeah,
if you don't need that, then get you a Mac. Fine. You know.
To add on to Dan's point, that those CUDA cores, and it's new silicone on there. It's not just a matter of it being faster. It's that it actually has different computational circuitry on it than other video cards do. And so that circuitry really accelerates certain types of computation, and the CUDA cores is what does that.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter. It's not about speed. It's about, the architecture and the circuitry of it. And it just so happens to be very fast too, but yeah, it's the RTX that matters.
Aimee, did you have anything to add for the technology?
I don't have anything to add. I just had a couple questions come in that I would like for Dan and or Dave or Angus to address. The first question that came in, and I wasn't sure how to properly answer it, is oh shoot, I just lost it. For game development, what engine are we using? What software will we be what programming language will we learn? And then somebody just asked, do you recommend game dev majors get a PC for their first year, or can it wait until later semesters? So I kind of feel like that kind of wraps up what we were discussing.
So I would say wait till your second year. You don't need it right away. We have labs that always have availability, and we're upgrading everything like this year, aren't we, Dan?
So one of our labs actually is in a building that's not our like home building, and that building is actually getting torn down, and they're going to build something else there. So we are moving all of our stuff out of there, and then we're supposed to be getting another lab full of new computers. Plus, we just got a lab full of new computers last year, or maybe it was like a year and a half ago. So we have definitely a lot of like good fast computers in our department, and I would only say like so the answer is Unreal Engine 5. That's the game engine that we're using. As far as software goes, there's a lot of different things you could use for software, but typically we've been teaching Maya. However, the newest Maya has been very, very buggy, so I've been using Blender more and more. There's nothing wrong with learning either one of those.
Blender is free though.
Blender's free, and it's actually really good. So I know I've been using it a lot, and it's perfectly acceptable. And the skills transfer though, it's like going into a different workshop when you go into these different programs, but the skills transfer, even if you were learning Unreal 5, the game engine technology type of stuff would transfer over to Unity. It might be a little bit different language, and you did ask about languages. Python, C++. I'm not sure about the web stuff as much, but I know like we have a new class that we're starting that's an intro that teaches Python, and we've always had a C++ class, and then of course a bunch of web classes that teach different programming languages. Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
So Emma, could you share what programming languages you've learned so far?
Yeah, so I don't know how many actually cross over into other majors. But for web, you start with, the basic stuff like HTML, CSS. We do an entire semester in JavaScript. We do a semester in PHP and connecting that to MySQL. And then more of the upper level stuff is like ASP.NET and C#. I did take the C++ class. And yeah, I think that's a lot of them.
And for our UX majors, do y'all do any programming tech software specifically?
Yeah, I can chime in on that. So just like every CGT major, you have to do web design during your first semester. It's an introductory course where you do HTML, CSS, and a tiny bit of JavaScript. I don't know if they still have that. Maybe they like just are doing HTML and CSS. And then for UX specifically, we do a lot on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, plus a little bit of PHP in our second studio. And then our third studio is a lot of JavaScript and Arduino. I haven't done Studio 4 and 5, but I think that's kind of covering all of it. And I'm doing a certification in Python, but that's totally separate. They do recommend if you have a good amount of technical experience before entering the workspace, but it's up to each student.
And I just want to say to all the students out there, you can get all of this software for free. Don't get snookered into paying for any of it.
Yes.
Python, Unreal Engine, Visual Studio is something we didn't mention that it'd probably be a good idea to get familiar with Visual Studio. It's the program specifically is Visual Studio Code. And it's free. It's by Microsoft. It is an amazingly powerful compiler that will run Python. It will run C++. It will run anything because there's plugins for it. And I've used it professionally as well as a teaching tool. So Visual Studio Code is a great we call them IDEs, Integrated Development Environment. That's the IDE you want to spend some time with.
Now, I know that we don't have any UX specific faculty on air tonight, but as far as computer recommendations go for UX design, for those students who are participating, do you need any special software or technology capabilities for your computers?
I can do this one. So I don't think there's any specific requirements other than just having a laptop. I know most students in the course own a MacBook Air, but I've also seen a couple of people who have Windows. In general, you just need something that's able to run web browsers really well because a lot of the software we use is just online.
Now, Angus, one of the hallmarks of our college is that students have opportunities to gain real-world experience. How did they accomplish that in CGT?
Good question. I think the most common way that people get real world experience is they try and get internships in the summer. Usually, I believe that's usually towards the late, junior and senior level students. I know.
Hang on, Angus, you're muted.
Sorry, the audio went off.
Yeah, Webex is having some issues. So I was saying that there are opportunities for students to find internships in the summer. I know that Amy's letting me know that there's opportunities that are posted in CGT News for students to work with local companies, for example, or to find remote opportunities as well. Amy can speak to that in a minute. A lot of times classes, especially I've heard of this in UX design, but also in data visualization and maybe Dan and David can speak to this as well. When we create projects, especially again in upper level classes, we try and make them interesting by collaborating with people who have real world problems in industry or maybe in government or maybe working with, there's lots of opportunities, but I think that's something that CGT, I would say, excels in, is trying to give students practical real world skills on top of the theoretical foundation so that when you come out of CGT, you have you already have experiences that are applicable in the real world.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of times our faculty are doing research in addition to teaching. So there's opportunities to be able to support our faculty as an undergrad doing research. Dave, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I do a lot of research in experiential education. So this actually goes to about the internships. I operate a real live game studio called Fledgling Media, and it's housed in my lab, but it is It's a commercial game studio where we make commercial games that are destined to be on Steam and the other digital marketplaces, and they, held to very high production standards. And at Fledgling, we also conduct research. So we have twin teams. We have the commercial team and the research team. And the research team is, trying to push the bounds of knowledge of the world, of understanding the world around us better through our research. And then the commercial side of it is taking what we already know and making very, very good games with that knowledge. So that's another internship experience that is available. But I'm not going to lie to you, it's competitive. The students who get into Fledgling are really good.
Now, Dan, could you talk a little bit about the aspect of portfolios? How quickly do students start creating their portfolios, and when they're ready to go out into industry, what do those portfolios look like?
That's a great question for me. When I first came here to Purdue, the game program and the animation program were just sort of getting their legs. And one of the things that I wanted to institute was that students actually start making a portfolio immediately. Basically, so I started doing this in my CGT 116 geometric modeling class, because it was a class that everybody took in the first year. And so what I made everybody actually take all of their models, and they would actually make a website, a free website. It was through Weebly. That's the one I would use. There's few different websites providers you could use, but I would have them do a free website. Basically, they host like 3D viewers. It's like advanced 3D viewer, and then they would embed that into their website. So immediately within the first or second semester of students starting, they were actually building a portfolio. And the idea was that obviously as you go along and you get better at your work, because sometimes in the first year your work's not as good as it's going to be obviously a year later, 2 years later, but you curate it like you're a museum curator, picking the best works, and then the works that aren't so great you could just hide or just delete if you want to. And so that we now have that built into our program, and we actually have portfolio classes they're basically like, I would say a checkup, if you will. At the second year, third year, and fourth year, we have portfolio reviews, and we do that formally within a non-credit class. And once you get your portfolio review, you get approved. And now how those portfolios look, a lot of times it depends on what the student's doing, and how much work they're doing. To be honest, the more you put into learning and put into your projects and going above and beyond, the better the portfolios will look. This semester, we have had some just dynamite portfolios. I've been so enthusiastic about all the amazing. In fact, I would say out of all the semesters I've been here, the best portfolios I've seen have been this semester. So obviously, I feel like we keep getting better and better with this, but a lot of it just has to do with not only the students doing their classes and their work, but not just settling for, oh, I'll just do what the professor asks. Go out and do even more than the professor asks, because it's really building your portfolio is what's going to be proof to an employer that you are employable, that you have the skills that they would need to actually work and be able to produce for them. Did that answer the question?
It did. Thank you so much.
I'll add to that. And it just that your portfolio it's your lightsaber. Okay. It's the most important asset you have in your career. So we are always, as faculty, looking at your work, looking for ways to make it better so you can get it on your portfolio. We just really, try to beat you over the head with that a lot and emphasize it because it's just so important.
Fantastic. Now, I know that we do have a lot of underclassmen with us, so we might not have very many internship experiences, but I think I've got a couple of internship talking points. Aashika, do you have an internship? Have you had one just yet?
Yeah, so during my freshman semester, even like 2 months into my fall semester, I had a opportunity. So a lot of our internship possibilities come through either the CGT newsletter or notifications through Brightspace, or some of our professors will just email like their entire list of students and saying, hey, this is an opportunity, try it out. If you like it, let me know how it goes. So I got one through Miss Tony, who's the director of RRD at Polytech, and she sent it out to everyone saying, this is a chance, apply, and I did. And after a couple rounds, it went pretty well, and then they flew us out to Kentucky, Louisville, where their headquarters were. We got to spend 2 days getting a full day of in-person interviews, and then they flew us back, and then in a couple days they told us if we made it or not. And I got the opportunity to intern for Humana over the summer, and I absolutely loved it. So I was thinking about returning again the following semester, but I was applying again to a bunch of new companies just to see if I could, try out new companies and understand new industries that may not just be in the health insurance space. So this semester, or actually last semester, I got an offer for American Express for the upcoming summer, as well as a return offer when I graduate. So it really depends. The best advice I can give is, one, be on the lookout for all the emails that come through you to your email. Some of them can be trash emails, but just keep a lookout at saying if it's a job opportunity or an internship opportunity. It doesn't hurt to take a couple seconds to read it, as well as start early, because if you start in September or close to October, a lot of the great all of the great applications for these big companies kind of go away with the students that apply early. So I would say start getting your resume ready, your portfolio ready. For all CGT majors, a portfolio is very important, as well as a LinkedIn page or something that shows your online presence and kind of can communicate your success in your field. So I would say I started applying. I looked a lot through career listings in July, but then I started getting into applying in August, which helped me land American Express. So definitely just get ready to just apply to 100+ internships, and maybe you'll get like a couple.
Yeah, so we're getting viewer questions about placement after graduation and starting salaries. There's a lot of information that you can find on our Purdue Polytechnic data dashboard. We'll link it in the chat here in a little bit when we're done airing, but it's polytechnic.purdue.edu/data dashboard. It has a lot of data specific to the various programs in the Polytechnic, including CGT. It's a great space to be able to deep dive into all of that information. So we're going to stay just a little bit longer on air to get all the topics we have planned and answer all of your questions. I know that Angus is needing to leave pretty quickly. One last question for you is, you are one of the newer majors in our department. But every industry has a need for professionals who can make sense from the data. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Data visualization is inherently pretty interdisciplinary. Scientists and researchers use data visualization to explain their results. Journalists use data visualization to allow readers to interact with the data and understand how data might affect them. Businesses and corporations develop data visualizations to summarize quarterly reports and business trends. Pretty much any industry you look at, you'll see data visualization being used more and more and getting more and more sophisticated. So data visualization is obviously representing data, so there's kind of a computational aspect to it, but there's also a creative aspect to it and a UX design aspect to it. How do you develop graphics that are meaningful, easy to read, engaging? Yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting area myself.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. I know you've got to leave, so please hop off when you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Hope to see you next year.
Bye. Now, Nadia, I know that you're a junior. Have you had a chance to have an internship?
No, I haven't yet, but I've applied for many. I'm going through the interview process for one that'll be coming up in the summer.
Fantastic. Could you walk us through a little bit of how that process has gone for you? You don't have to share anything about the job or the company, just how you found it.
Yeah, so I actually found it through an email that I got from Purdue. A few of them I have. The others have just been either from peers or finding them myself. And it's actually been a lot easier simply because I've gone through some portfolio classes already, setting up my own domain and my own website. And then I'm also working on something that I can actively like update my portfolio with the project that I have in CGT 365. So I kind of have like my resume chiseled out as well as like a portfolio displaying my work. So it's definitely been a smoother sail than it kind of could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had mentioned that you had received a lot of emails. Do you know of any other places that students could locate that information for potential jobs?
I get it mainly through the CGT news that I get to my email, so those are extremely helpful. They also pop up on like Brightspace, which is like the Blackboard for our school. So they usually pop up like on my calendar and things like and stuff like that. Sometimes I see them just on the Purdue website itself, but usually I get them through the CGT news.
Yeah, absolutely. And that CGT news, that's something that you'll be pre-populated into within your learning management system. You might be familiar with Blackboard or Canvas. We use Brightspace here, and that's where you'll be able to access all of your courses for during your time here at Purdue. And so in that CGT news space, you'll not only learn about what's happening around campus, what's happening within our department, but also we'll share all job opportunities that are related to all of our majors. You'll also be able to see when career fairs are being hosted. CGT offers 2 throughout the school year, 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring. And then there's also a last minute career fair that comes up in April as well. So being prepared to go to those is super important and pivotal to be able to make sure that you're interacting and networking with industry.
I want to follow up
Dan,
on this, if I can.
go ahead.
I just want to say all of these emails and notices and everything. My sound went weird again.
Yep.
Okay, all these emails and notices and everything that go out, they don't come from nowhere. They come from our good friend Kelsey. Okay, Kelsey works tirelessly to round up opportunities and put them in front of everybody. And I'm grateful to her personally, but I'm also grateful that we have a program that understands we need a Kelsey. Yeah, we need a Kelsey to go out there because it's hard work finding opportunities. And it takes, a lot of it is who you know. And it just so happens that she knows a lot of people.
A little distracted with LinkedIn every so often. That's where I find most of the things. I go on some deep dives. It's okay. It is proving to be beneficial for students. Let's see. Now, Dan. Audio technical issues. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I couldn't hear you. I didn't hear what you said.
Okay. So after students in any of our majors graduate, what kinds of careers do they find?
That's a great question because I sort of wanted to address that earlier. We were talking about, I think Dave was talking about game jobs. I really encourage students to not pigeonhole themselves. And I know a lot of them think they, that, I want to work in games. I want to work in games. The interesting thing about like learning is that it's applicable in so many different areas now, not just games. and there's other kinds, there's like serious games, or there's like simulations, there's scientific learning tools that all use this interactive technology that we teach. And I wouldn't be telling the truth if I didn't say that getting into the game industry is very, very challenging. I know, I did it. I worked in the game industry for about almost 7 years. Students that do get in, the ones that usually get in are the ones that are just the hardest workers that we have. They're typically kind of grinding at whatever they find that they like within our program. They start doing it a lot, and they keep working at it. They keep working at it, and the next thing you know, they basically work themselves to the point where they're sort of becoming maybe not a high level expert, but like a low level expert, so they can get a job. But there's also, you don't have to just go into the game industry itself. There's a lot of different areas where you could develop applications and graphics. I mean, you think about like the Apple, what's the new thing called? I forgot what it's called, but the new Apple headset. You know, um, when those become glasses, right? When they get, I mean, they have Google glasses that, but they're not efficient enough yet. But when it becomes that, and on the wall, when you're looking at stuff like that, and someone has to program, and someone has to do the graphics, and someone has to do the interactive, applications for that. Well, we teach stuff like that, whether it's within games or within web and UX. I mean, all of those things have to do, all of our disciplines are kind of revolving around those type of obviously there's the games and the animation and the visual effects. That's where, that's kind of where my headspace was, because that's what I worked in. But there's so many other fields out there. There's scientific data visualization. Dave, chime in here. You know a lot about this stuff. What
Well,
else is
yeah,
out there?
in that there's marketing, like web storefronts. You often will see, like on Amazon, there will be 3D renders of products that you can rotate around and look at. It's people like our students who make these renders. Dan teaches them to model these things in 1/16. So it can be tempting to be intimidated by the games and animation industries because they are so competitive, and you have to be really good. But what I often tell people is, you may not get in right after you graduate. Gee whiz. But if you keep at it, you will get in. Okay? If you just stay true. And here's the beauty of it, though. In CGT, we teach you these skills that are marketable in so many places, like Dan says, with the Apple Vision Pro, at Meta, at in social media, all these different places. And I'm speaking more about games and animation here. You UX folks, I'm going to strangle it. The UX folks, they can go anywhere, whereas us entertainment people are a little bit more limited. But we also have lots of options beyond just pure entertainment. There's simulation, there's the military, there's product research. So yeah, there's a lot of range there.
Yeah, more than more than just thinking about the entertainment. Is that
Dan,
it
can you
goes.
start over with that?
Oh,
It
sorry.
dropped out.
Did it
Hang
cut
on
out?
just a second. Yeah, for viewers
Sorry.
who just joined us, our panelists are connected via Webex, and then our meetings get uploaded to YouTube. Webex has been having some audio connection issues tonight. We apologize for any of those audio cutouts. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was just saying, just reiterating that, don't think that the only place to get a job with the stuff that we're teaching in our department, especially on the entertainment side, like the animation games, job is in those entertainment fields. There's so many other places that need that kind of technology help, and our students don't just get jobs at those places. Some of them go out and do scientific data visualization. Some of them go out and they make applications that are interactive teaching tools. That there's a lot of different areas where this stuff is used.
So we need to start wrapping up, but before we go, I'd like to ask each of you a question. Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Okay, fantastic. So before we start wrapping up, what advice can you share with students to be both happy and successful during their time at Purdue? Dave, you can go first.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
I know, I'm sorry.
Get to know people. This games, heck, the whole modern workforce is not a place. I get a notification every time it drops. Anyway, it's not a place for loners and solo pilots. And I know a lot of people like myself are very introverted, and that doesn't come easy. So I'm sympathetic to that, but you need a little help from your friends. So make friends, get to know people, be nice. In 5 years, some of these people are they might be hiring you. Okay. And they remember you as being difficult. That's not good. And vice versa, right? You're going to remember the people that made your life miserable in your projects. So develop those social skills and get to really appreciate people and get comfortable working in teams. It's going to have all kinds of benefits.
Yes, absolutely. Now I know that our next guest, Aashika, you've got to get going. So do you have any advice for any incoming students?
Yeah, I would say the best advice that I got before entering college, just do one thing that pushes you outside your comfort zone. I feel like I've met some of my best friends doing Boiler Gold Rush, which is like an orientation program freshmen can do in their first week. And my experience was a little off and on, but I did meet 3 of my best friends that I'm actually rooming with now and possibly getting an apartment next year. So do something random. If you want to join a bowling club, join bowling club. Do something that doesn't have to make your just do something that makes your heart happy. That's my thing. Find your sparkle.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
I love that.
Emma, what about you? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I definitely feel like college is a great place, not just for academic growth and kind of figuring out what you want to do with the rest of your life, whether, that is the major that you came in with or whether you switch 3 times. Kind of not only figuring that out, but kind of figuring out who you are as figuring out who you are as your own independent person and kind of just with the independence you get a new level of seeing what you're capable of, and usually that's a lot more than you think you are capable of. So definitely don't hold yourself back. Everyone that's here is in a similar situation. No one's ever paying that much attention to you. So yeah, I just think that college is a really great place to grow. Take advantage of that while you're here.
Thank you so much, Emma. Nadia, do you have any advice to share?
You're muted.
I think she might be having some technical issues. So Ishani, do you have any advice to share?
Yeah, of course. Get overwhelmed, especially in your first year, especially because you're also kind of comparing how you're doing in comparison to others. So I would say just be really careful not to spiral down that like rabbit hole of trying to keep up with others, and like focus on yourself, focus on pushing yourself and what seems new to you. And I would also say just take full advantage of all the resources Purdue has to offer. There's so much here, and it's not only limited to Polytechnic, but just the entire campus, even all the libraries, things that we can use to help us progress further. And I would say just like fully just freak out, just do everything as much as you can.
I like that.
Nadia, are you reconnected?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Awesome.
can.
So,
Awesome.
my word of advice would be to never be afraid to ask questions or just to talk to people, like whether it's like your class. I would, okay, there we go. I would say like just create a rapport with the people around you, and definitely don't be afraid to ask any of your advisors or your teachers. They're very nice people, at least in the CGT area they are. So, and they're extremely helpful as well. And as Professor Whittinghill said, it's about who you know. So it's best to get to know everyone.
Absolutely. Dan, do you have
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I think everything that everybody said was so valid. The thing that I would add, I mean, I think I already said it, but I'm going to say it again, is like you just take whatever you're doing and go a step beyond it. And part of that is like Purdue is a research one institution, and you learn certain fundamentals, but then doing your own research beyond that, you learn and do, and just keep pushing yourself to do more, not just the bare minimum, not just to get an A in the class. You want to get like an A, and then you have your teachers talk about how amazing your work was. That's really, because then that's going to lead to opportunities later. You want to almost like make your mark, and your name needs to be circulated amongst the the professors. That way, you'll definitely get all.
Yeah, we do talk. Like, holy
Yeah.
moly, did you see so and so's work?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what I'm
And,
talking about.
and I hate to say this, but if you're here for grades, you're here for the wrong reason. Okay, the grades are a byproduct of doing excellent work.
Yeah.
Put it in that order, in that priority.
Yep.
now I do have one piece of advice for students. Please. Okay, so I do have one piece of advice for students, and that's please make sure that you're checking your emails. I know that you will start receiving a ton of emails throughout the days, the weeks, the months, the years that you're here on campus, but you see some very important information get sent out via your email system. So please don't just like get access to it and completely ignore it your 4 years on campus. Because like the student said earlier, I am sending you valuable information. Your academic advisors and your faculty, professors are 100% communicating with you via the email system. So please make sure that you're checking that every single day. And we want to just say thank you to everyone. This is going to conclude our discussion tonight. Thanks again to all of you for watching, and we hope you learned something new about the Department of Computer Graphics Technology here at the Polytechnic at Purdue. We hope you'll join us for one or more upcoming events for admitted students, including Purdue's for Me, which is an opportunity. There are also many online information sessions and student-to-student chats. You can find information for all of those opportunities on our admitted student information page. Thanks again to all of our panelists for joining us, for sharing your wisdom and experience. And if you joined us late, be sure to watch the replay because we talked about a variety of topics during the last hour. Thanks as well to John, to our technical director, for all of the behind-the-scenes work. As I mentioned before, please feel free to send emails EDU if you have any additional questions for us about computer graphics technology here at Purdue.
I
Just
missed that
a reminder,
email.
the deadline to accept offer for admission is May 15th. Thanks again for being here tonight. Have a great evening and boiler up.